Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming to this wonderful panel that we've got and mixer. There's booze and food. It's called Black in Tech in Utah. We should have done a ... in Utah because I think that adds a whole nother nuance of things. I'm Sunny Washington and I'm the CEO of Utah Tech Leads, and we are an association that works with tech companies. We do panels like this, but then we also lobby and legislate on the Hill and run our own candidates because we want to have better representation with the Utah State Legislature. I'm going to let everybody go ahead and, introduce themselves and the companies that they're from. But we're really excited to share this, and I appreciate you guys coming to listen to this important topic.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nikki Walker. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Domo.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Connie Washington, and I am VP of People Partners and DE&I at Progressive Leasing.
Just need to point out that these two ladies got promotions in the last 2 weeks. So.
Black History Month. Woohoo!
Right. Hi, I'm Camille Nugent. I'm art director at Life Vantage, but I'm also a fine artist, creative, and graphic designer.
Hi, I'm Marlon Lindsay, founder and CEO of 21st Cent Ed.
Okay, so let's just get it out there. I mean, there's like 1.5% black people in Utah, less in tech. Why the hell are you guys working in tech? Like, just tell me, like, why? Like, I want to know about your company's DE&I strategy, why you would go there where you are going to be the only or one of the onlys there.
Oh, okay. Well, I come from a background where I'm usually one of the onlys. Whether it's been in the college that I went to or the school programs that I was in, I've always been the only, whether that meant woman or black person or black woman, as it is here in Utah. And what happens when you are the only is that your voice is amplified if you use it correctly. So there's a platform in tech for black people, for all people of color, who would like to make a change and who want to see changes. And the fact of the matter is, the tech space is the most lucrative space to be in, and we should have access to it. And so I use my voice in my space as one of the onlys to ensure that other people have access and that their barriers are removed.
Good question. I got into tech accidentally, but I realized the last 3 companies I've worked for have been tech companies, and I've been the only 2. And you're starting to see more, and so that's nice. I think it's just that we don't have that visibility. Our organization is nationwide. So when the spring awakening of a couple of years ago occurred, we brought many of our black folks together, and they were stunned. There's about 120 or so, but they hadn't seen each other. They didn't know they existed. So looking at their faces, they were like, I just had no idea. And they've stayed connected and built those relationships. So that's been a benefit of what happened a couple of years ago, that it forced conversations, it forced activities that kind of amplified the vision of companies, and you got to see who really is a part of that company, which was a positive for us for sure.
I have also been one of the onlys in my time here in Utah, but I'm from Jamaica. I just met Marlon tonight.
You guys are like best Jamaica. Friends already. Within 2 seconds, I said you're both from Jamaica. Yeah.
Yes.
So I come from a place where the majority is Jamaican. Yes, we have many different cultures, and the motto of Jamaica is out of many one people, so you'll find Asians and East Indians and Europeans, and they're white Jamaicans, black Jamaicans. But you come here to Utah, and even in school there was a group of black students, they're Polynesian students, but primarily the majority is white, and you see that reflected all over the state. So any job that I have had, I've been the only black person, sometimes the only woman, or one of very few women. And as Nikki said, your voice tends to be amplified. So if you look at black designers in general across the country, it's been in the single digits, even up till I think the last survey by the AIGA, which is the American Institute for Graphic Arts, was I think max was 4.8%, so 3 to 4.8% of all designers in tech. So that could be graphic design, it could be UX, it could be UI. These are the people who, like me, are the face of the company. Like anything you'll see from social media to podcasts to billboards, any kind of printed collateral, they're the ones who put it out there for the company. So we have the chance as designers to make our voices heard visually, to represent diversity and equity, not just as people of color, but as women, as you can represent gender identity, sexual orientation, everything. So we have the power visually to show that, and I've been doing that here in my time in Utah.
Marlon, what about you?
So, so that Jamaican heritage, there's no place we can't go. There's no place we don't belong. So that's in me. But I've been the only for a very long time. But I want to share a couple of stories. So early in my sales career, one of the things that got me motivated to get into new territories was this story. This shoe company wanted to expand their markets, and the CEO said to their top sales guy, "Hey, I want you to go to Africa and take a look and see what's happening over there in the shoe market." And guy flew to Africa on the private jet, stepped up, looked around, came back, told the CEO, they just don't wear shoes in Africa. I just don't think that's a good market. So the CEO was a very thorough. It's a story. It's not real. It's not real. I heard it's a story. So the CEO was very thorough. I mean, he got where he was because he didn't just take one opinion. So he sent his second best sales guy out to Africa. He got off the plane. They looked around and went a little farther in. Jumped back on the plane. He said, "Boss, you can't believe what I saw in Africa. Nobody's wearing shoes in Africa." Right? So the market was there. And in tech, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when we need to get into tech. So let me throw out a couple of things. Right now, automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies are changing everything. You won't even be able to get a job at McDonald's without a tech background, a STEM background. You won't be able to function in a non-techie field without a STEM background, a tech background. So if it's just a matter of if, and when and not if, the time is now, and Utah is Africa. There ain't a whole lot of us out here, and you could chart a course and get some market share in Utah.
That's a great story. Do you tell that story to your kids at night?
I
I could listen to you all day. Connie, you said something really interesting. You said that it's actually growing and it's getting better. Is that what you're observing at your companies, that there's more diversity? I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think companies are more intentional about it now, and they're thinking about it. With COVID, everybody went home on March 13th for a couple of weeks, and 2 years later, we're staying home. So the beauty of that is now we have employees all over the country. Mm-hmm. So it was primarily Draper, Utah, and Phoenix, Arizona, where we were hiring. COVID blew that up, and we're getting people from all over the country. So that's a fantastic opportunity for the diversity of thought as well as all the other aspects of diversity. And we're seeing the benefit. We last year hired a black chief compliance officer. So, you see very few chief black people in Utah. Mm-hmm. In the organizations, but I was really pleased that happened, because that's some visibility, that's a voice, at the table with the influence that is beneficial to understand the experience that we have.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah, and Nikki, tell me, I feel like of the tech companies in Utah, Domo has really led out. I know that Josh James is a white guy, so tell me why it is a priority for Domo.
Yeah, absolutely. And Connie said the word intentional, and I want to kind of build on that. We understand diversity of thought as well. In order to make a good product, you have to be able to understand your customer. And if there are 5 cisgendered white guys at the table building products, then it is very likely that they're going to miss opportunities or miss situations where other people might have problems with that solution that they're creating. So the more diverse people that you have that are building and creating, the more relative and relatable that product is going to be to a global market. And our company is a global company, and Josh James has a heart for people, and that's what I learned when I first went to Domo. But in being intentional, he hired a director of diversity in 2017. And we all in the tech world know who that was. Cameron Williams, may he rest in peace. And Cameron was intentional about amplifying voices, whether they were Black voices or LGBTQ voices or veteran voices. He was intentional about that, and it's my intent and Domo's intent to carry that on. So I want to say that the last quarter of 2019, we actually had 38% of our new hires that were either women or of marginalized communities. And that happened because we intentionally said, we're going to change our hiring policies. And if there is not a woman or a person from a marginalized community on the slate to be interviewed, we won't do the interview. So HR went to work, and that's work. It's hard work to find the needle in the haystack, because it's not about hiring Black people or brown people or gay people or whatever. It's about hiring the people who have the best ability. It's about hiring the best person for the job. And what happens is that, and I say it all the time, if you ever have heard me speak, I always say it, opportunity is distributed equally, but, talent is distributed equally, but opportunity is not. And so until people understand that they have an opportunity, they're not gonna bring themselves to the table. So it was our job to go out and reach out to people that we never reach out to. You think about recruiting. People recruit the people that they know. And if your circle is homogenous, then the industry begins to look homogenous. And so we did things such as hired a company called Jobwell, which specifically looks at diverse talent, and we brought them on board as a partner. We worked with the Black Chamber and the Asian Chamber to make sure that we were getting the word out to these qualified individuals who simply didn't have access to us. And so it's about intentionality. It really is about being intentional. And for Domo, again, we are a global company, and we need our products to work for everybody. And so diversity of thought is always first top of mind for us.
Yeah, I really love that thinking and being intentional about diversity is good business. You build better products, you build better companies, you build better teams. Camille, I have a question for you. So Camille, something you guys don't know is Camille and I go way back. We met in 2002. 2002. So some of you may have not been born. Let's just be real. But Camille and I worked for an American fork company. We had this Jamaican, Korean, and then our other best friend was this Armenian girl in American Fork, right? Like of a 100-person company. It was great, and we've been best friends for since that time. But when you're in that environment, you're working with a lot of white people. How can white people be allies, and what are some examples of allyship that you've seen in your career?
I think the first part of being an ally is being willing to ask questions and to listen for answers and to see how you can change, how you can make a difference. As far as working with the kinds of companies I have worked with here in Utah, sometimes it's like me bringing an idea to the table or me proposing something visually for the company. Like I said, maybe I'll just pepper in some more Black faces into the artwork that I do, or even, Asians talk about other cultures that we're doing. And I'd have to present it to my boss, my manager, maybe sometimes ladder up to the VP or CEO. And these are the people who make the decisions. I may not be in the rooms where the final decisions are made or the papers are signed, but I can start at the base level, making these decisions, ladder them up, and as allies, as white allies in these industries, they can say yes. Sometimes a yes is all it takes to start with that change.
I love that. Marlon, a question for you. So, what are some of the things you think tech companies need to do to attract and retain? I mean, attracting is one thing. Retention, I mean, Connie just showed me an article about the lack of retention of black people in tech, right? And so what do tech companies need to do to help with those efforts?
So I think the first thing that we have to stop doing is making diversity an exception, right? So we have a diversity policy, not a diverse culture, for example. So it can't be, we can't just have so yes, we need to have deliberate steps to transform the culture into a diverse culture, but it can't just be a diversity program. In our company, we embrace diversity as our superpower, not because it's a cool thing to do, because it's the thing to do. You can't serve a market, can't serve a country that looks pretty diverse with a homogeneous workforce. So, and then the cultural piece of it is, it's not one or two diverse groups that you have in the company. It's what are you doing? How are you embracing diversity? So you can hire a black person or an LGBTQ person or a woman and put them in places, but do you embrace all of that person? So we have to shift from policy to culture to retain people of a diverse workforce, and that's, somebody's got to think about that. Somebody's got to think about what that means, which means you have to talk to your people. You have to ask them what kind of food you like. You have to have real conversations. How are your kids? What do they do? What do you like to do? You have to talk to them like they're not just an other, but they're part of the culture. And when you create that environment, ain't nobody going anywhere.
So do you bring jerk chicken to
Interestingly enough, I would like to. We're pretty virtual in terms of the company. We're kind of spread out, but we embrace. You bring it. All right, come as you are. Bring who you are, not just who you are. Right, and so I make this distinction very deliberately. Who you are is a bunch of stuff that you put on yourself. Right, how you are. All right, you're born with that. We want you to bring that, and it includes everything about you.
I'm coming for the jerk chicken.
Yeah, and the jerk chicken.
I will say, I have a Traeger smoker, and I make some mean jerks. So
Okay, so pool party at my house this summer. Got it. Yeah, it's done. Yeah. Okay, Nikki, I have a question for you. Where would you like to see better representation of black people in Utah?
Can I say everywhere?
I know. I don't want to. Let's be a little more specific.
So I think where, well, I think that black people need to be at the table. We understand it's 1.5% of the population. That population is in fact growing. The diversity in Utah is in fact growing. If you actually look at the numbers, I think right now we're something like 32% diverse throughout the state, which is a big deal, considering that one group of diverse people are only 1.5%. You put us all together, now we're Voltron, and we have power, and there is power in numbers. And, I'd love to see more diversity, or I'd love to see more black women in politics. I would love to see more black women on the Hill with the decision-making power, sitting at the table, listening to the ideas and ideals that are coming down the pipeline, and being able to share different perspectives. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is about. It is about perspectives, and we can't leave out a group of people because they're not in our friend circle. We can't leave out a group of people because we don't see them every day. I remember when we first moved to Utah, my son's sitting right here, I live in Utah County, and we would go to the grocery store, and small children would stop and stare at my son. And once one of those small children pointed and said, "There's one right there." That's a problem. That's a huge problem. We've learned to take those opportunities as educational opportunities to share with people. But again, right now, as the legislature is in session, there is a bill on the floor that talks about hair discrimination. And last session, when that bill was on the floor, it was dismissed because there was a group of white men who were making the decision on whether or not it passed. And hair discrimination is not something that they face. My son has dreadlocks down the back of his back. He faces hair discrimination. Sometimes I like to go natural. I could face hair discrimination. People could take it as unprofessional rather than cultural. People will take it as disrespectful rather as proud. And we need to be able to make sure that we're changing those perspectives by showing up and being there. And so I'd like to see a more diverse political sphere here in Utah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. The current legislature is 93% white and male, so that's not even reflective of the state, you know. And then when you think of black individuals or even black women, that number gets smaller and smaller, and we're talking less than 1%. And you bring up an important point with what the bill, the Crown Act, as it's called. It's Senate Bill 117, run by Derek Kitchen. It's an important bill because I understand that, you know, even like a guy like Derek Kitchen who has no hair, you know, he's not facing it. But how important it might mean to you and the lives that you live and why that matters. Let's talk about hair. So I have an experience to share. Camille was at my house. We were at a pool party, and this lady came over. We had just met her that day, and I don't want to speak ill of her. It's more about a story of what I didn't know what to do, but she started grabbing Camille's hair and touching it, and I was like, and
I didn't know what to say.
she didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. We were both looking at each other, and we were both having that, like, what the, you know, thought.
Yeah. And there are people around, so you don't want to be like, oh, like calling this person
Yeah,
out.
you don't want to be rude, but I didn't know what to do. And after it was over, I had to text Camille, and I was like, I was horrified. What do we do? What do we do to show allyship? What do we do to show that, you know, when it does happen? Because those things just need to be nipped. And I don't think she was trying to be rude. We all recognize that. It's just curiosity and all of that. But, you know, I didn't know what to do. And I mean, I'm like, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how to call it out. What should I have done, Camille?
It's not just allyship that's the question, but even in my case where I didn't know what to say or do as she was doing it to me in my space, on my body, even if I was wearing extensions at the time, yes, they're extensions of me, but it's still part of me, and this person felt it was her right to do this. And I think being in this culture for so long, in Jamaica, there's no way somebody could do that to you. But being here in Utah for so long, like I had no words for it. So I think we need to maybe figure out conversations about this before these things happen again. Like, what do you say? I think from now on, like that was actually kind of a shocking experience for me. Was it last year?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
Like
yeah.
now I say no.
Yeah.
That I appreciate you like my hair, but please don't. But I mean, it's a hard conversation, especially for children. So my niece, she lives in Portland, but I think this happened when she was living in Alabama. She's 13 now. This happened when she was 11 or 12. The kids at her school would just come up to her and scrunch her hair because she's half white, half black, and she has glorious hair, beautiful, beautiful. I wouldn't even just say this to her because I would say to her, "Oh, your hair looks beautiful. Can I touch it?" Because you want to have children say you have the autonomy to say, "Okay, this is my body. Yes, you can come into my space. Yes, you can, maybe explore this part of my body. Yes." But she was shocked. She didn't know what to say. Her mom at the time didn't know what to say. She wrote a song about it. She was depressed for like half the school year. We have to be able to have these conversations in ourselves, with our friends, with our children.
Yeah.
It's not just the allyship, but how we can use our own voices
Yeah.
to protect ourselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, I felt awful. I thought about it for days. I still think about it of like, what was I supposed to do? I think we were just so shocked at the time.
Yeah.
Say something? I just want to build on that for a second because we do have a room full of people who are not black. And this is a really important situation. It happens far too often here in Utah. I have a lot of black friends. I got a lot of white friends. I've got a lot of LDS friends. You know, my friends are from Utah, but in my black community, we have this discussion often because often, once a week, somebody is having this experience. And I want to be very clear to everybody here. First of all, that's somebody's personal space. You're not allowed in other people's personal space, whether that person is black, white, green, or purple. But when a black person's personal space is invaded, it really sparks a trauma that is in our genetic DNA. And it is the most unfortunate feeling. It's a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. We come from a place where we had been put on display for people to come and touch and look and feel and judge and purchase. So it is the ultimate disrespect to come to a person who is a person of color, a black person specifically, in a place where they are supposed to be equal to you, and for them to be treated like property. And that is the reality. And the allyship in this moment is for every white person here to have this conversation at their dinner table with their children, with their friends, with their colleagues, because there's no way else to share this. But it's important, and it needs to be shared.
That's super powerful. I love that.
That's
Thank you.
drop the mic on that one, sis.
Connie, you're a lifelong Utahn.
I sure am. Born and bred.
Yeah. Your parents were here.
My dad came here at the age of 12 from Missouri because his parents had to send him away to get his education.
Right.
Because where he lived, he was going to have to start picking, go into the tobacco fields at 12. So they put their 10-year-old and 12-year-old boys on a train with a sack lunch and sent them to the aunt here who promised she would get them their education if they would send them away.
And and when your parents got married, they moved to Rose Park. Tell us a little bit about the reaction. Yeah. And I mean, you're not that old, so this was not that long ago.
Yeah. Not that long ago at all. Yeah, it was 1961 when they moved to the home that they purchased. It's actually considered Fair Park, just outside of Rose Park. And my mom was a nurse. My dad had worked for the federal government. They had good jobs, 4 children. So they found a home, said, there it is, and put the offer down, and the neighbors filed a petition. They were like, nope, you don't know. You can't come here. And they were like, yes, we can. And so they fought the petition, and they purchased their home. But they knew right away that they didn't want them there. But it ended up there were more and more, so they couldn't fight it. That's where a lot of black folks landed. But, yeah, that was their experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you watch your parents go through that and kind of the trauma that happens, that it gets transferred into when you go into spaces where are mostly white. Are you going to be welcomed? Are you going to be accepted? And I think that that's important to recognize that when you're the only and visibly only, you stand out. And so, that allyship is important for all of us to show, to welcome you into those spaces, right?
And having the conversations.
Yes.
Same thing happened to, I can't believe we all have hair stories, but happened to me.
Of course you do.
It happened to me at the dentist, and, I was sharing it on a team call with a bunch of folks at work, probably 20 or so, and I told them that, the dental hygienist liked my braids, so she was like, I'm going in, and she went in for the kill. And I was like, oh, and I didn't say anything. And they're like, you're so bold, Connie. Why would you not say anything? I said, because I didn't want to make a scene. I'm in a little office. I'm going to say, don't touch my hair. She's going to be devastated. Might mess my teeth up. I don't want that to happen. But so that is where you can say to, in your spaces, to say that, you shouldn't do that. I talked to a coworker. We were talking about an interaction he had at a baseball game. And he said, somebody said the N-word. And he said, there's a black guy there, and he didn't do anything. I said, we don't want to have to be the ones to call people out. You do it. He was like, oh my God, you changed my life. I can't believe it. I got to go find him and apologize. But it was a wake-up call. He was like, I just didn't understand why he wouldn't stand up for himself. I said, because we're tired of standing up for ourselves. We're tired of being the ones to say, don't call me that, don't say that word, don't touch my hair, we don't want to, we will, but then you're the angry black woman. Oh, Lord, there she goes. Stay away from her. She's angry. No, I'm just standing up for myself. So we're fighting the battles of perception, and, this is the challenge you go through. Do I say something? Do I not say something? I should have said something. Why didn't I say something? Oh, my God, I don't have boldness. Yes, I do have boldness. Why didn't I say something? And over somebody doing something to me. Right. That's the insanity of what we face. So having these conversations, it's education. Just talk. Let's talk about it. Ask the difficult question.
Let's talk about that education a little bit. Marlon, you're in the education space, but this is a different kind of education. So when, George Floyd was murdered and that all happened, suddenly it sparked a lot of conversation. I know me and my husband, we went out to dinner with some neighbors of ours. We're probably the only people of color that they know. I remember they wanted to talk about it, and they said, can we ask? And, it was like the timidness. And I reflected, we had this conversation back at home where it was like, if they don't ask us, they really have no one to ask. So we have to let them ask some questions because they don't want to offend, they don't want to do the wrong thing, but they don't know where else to get that information. I mean, you live in Vineyard. So
Did you hear when she said that?
yeah. And for those of you that don't know,
Vineyard. It's almost like, what the hell are you doing there? That's what I heard.
I don't want to throw shame, but it is predominantly white for even Utah. Yeah. So what were those conversations like? I mean, did you have them? I know it was exhausting. What did you do?
So, interestingly enough, a cool thing happened in Vineyard. One of our neighbors tentatively asked us, would we, they wanted to do a backyard thing to talk about this, and would we participate? And we said, yes, absolutely. So the whole family, we got together in a neighbor's backyard, and we talked about it. And that was cool. And then the conversation opened up about white folks not knowing what to do. And isn't it tricky that we live in this world, and we have this unspoken fear of other people, right? And so that's the piece that we have to really talk about. Diversity is not just our responsibility. It's our responsibility, really. It's a better world when we include everybody. And you have to confront your fear of the other, right? What is that based on? What are you afraid of, right? And so yeah, in Vineyard we had some really cool conversations about it. But one conversation does not a happy world makes, right? So we have to continue to talk. And so let me just so we walk around every day. My wife is white, so I try to we have these conversations. It's like I walk around every day black. That means I'm wondering if you have something against me. I don't have anything against you. I'm wondering if you have something. Am I safe? Can I be me? And so if you see a black person who looks pissed off, I'm defensive. I'm ready for battle in case you judge me by the color of my skin. You're gonna try to offend me or discriminate against me. Or we walk around in fear, just timid, afraid to be our full selves, right? And so you can just break the ice. Say hi with a big smile. And we can too, or if we break the ice, because we're always, look, we've learned to survive. So I'm gonna smile at you, right? That's you're gonna see a smile on my face, mostly. But I have a very serious disposition, and you might think I'm pissed off, but I'm not. But if you engage me, the smile opens up. So we have to eliminate this fear and have these conversations. So I'm really grateful to my neighbor who said, "Hey, I don't know about all this stuff. I want to learn. can we talk about it? So in our little vineyard, we at least have one conversation.
Well, I love to see that.
Did you do that? I'm just saying, man.
Okay, we got some work to do in Draper. Yeah. No, thank you, Marlon, for sharing that. I know that was such a tough time and it was exhausting. And I think a lot of stress in the conversations that we're having. And there was almost this like, you guys are living it all the time and now it had to be talked about all the time. And it was invading work and media and, you know, social circles. So that was tough. So I appreciate any time anyone reaches out and helps to educate, you know, even though it shouldn't always be your responsibility. But, you know, I think that there is this element of us when we do that it changes lives and perceptions, because I know that, you know, if they know you, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that that's the experience that you're having. Yeah.
Can I just jump?
Sure.
So it does get exhausting. You know, we're always, you walk around having to be the better person. We're always the teacher, and it really is tiring. So if we can share the burden, it would be really helpful. And again, my wife, my kids, they say, Dad, you keep saying the same thing over and over and over. I repeat myself. We're just better for it. We're not asking for an exception. Diversity shouldn't be considered, we're cool because we have a strong diversity plan. I have a black neighbor and I have kids in my classroom, black teacher. That's exceptionalism. You shouldn't. When we get there, we shouldn't even see it. And that's a good thing for all of us. We shouldn't even see it. So I shouldn't have to touch your hair because it's different. So we're being othered all the time, and you're being othered because you're othering us. Right? So it's like what the Buddha says, when you go to kill somebody, dig 2 graves because you're going to die too. A part of you will. So when you discriminate against anybody, you're really discriminating against yourself as well. So we have to fix that.
You know, I'm just in awe because, you know, I think that sometimes it's so quick to dismiss Utah and dismiss, you know, diversity and just say, oh, that's Utah and that's what you have to put up with. But I look at 4 incredibly strong people, you know, on the stage that have made phenomenal careers and working, you know, building their own companies and brands and, you know, building amazing things at the companies and the value that they add. And I think, like, honestly, I'm just going to say it. Like, if a bunch of the white tech CEOs walked in, they'd be like, holy shit, where'd these guys come from? Like, they would look in this room and be like, how'd you guys all get together, you know? And there is pockets of greatness happening. And I love that we get to amplify the voices. So what I want to do is have you guys, with the last question, tell me what is the one thing you would love to see tech do to make it better for our black brothers and sisters here in Utah, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So who wants to go first? I'm looking at you, Nikki. Are you going to go? Do you got your answer? This was not a question on that.
I could go.
Okay,
I
Nick,
want to build
or, I'm
on
sorry.
what Marlon said. So I mentioned earlier that in the tech industry nationwide, so Silicon Valley, Silicon Slopes, wherever, as far as designers go, there are only 3 to less than 5% of us. And then in the wake of the George Floyd murder, there was an organization that popped up called Where Are the Black Designers? And that name came from a talk by another designer I think he was based in Atlanta. And he gave this talk at South by Southwest. If you have the time, look it up. It's very interesting. It's only like 30 to 45 minutes. Where are the black designers? So he poses this question. And, I mean, yes, in and of itself, it's a great question, but it's not one that I feel like we should have to ask. So I bring up Where Are the Black Designers because last year I was invited to submit work for a virtual exhibition. My brother put me in contact with this. He's also a designer. And as I was submitting my work, I thought about it. I was like, okay, I've heard of black designers. I see black designers. There are a few pockets here and there in Utah. A few years ago, I helped curate a show at Adobe for Black History Month, another one for Juneteenth. And with the first show, there were 5 of us artists. I I was looking everywhere for artists to do the show. And then the second one, I think it was less than 10. And I was like, okay, it's Utah. Yeah, it's not very diverse. This is what we get. But with the Where Are the Black Designers show all over the world, this was a worldwide exhibition. There were 300 designers and artists. And the creativity and the voices that were given space and amplified, I mean, they're phenomenal, but there really aren't that many of us. So I think, back to your question, what would we like to see? I would like to not have that question be posed. Like, I don't want to have to be identified as a Black designer or a Black artist. I want to be, oh, I'm a designer, I'm an artist, I'm Camille. That's just who I am. I don't want Black to have to be the qualifier, even though right now it is, and maybe in my lifetime it will still be that way, but I'd like to see that go away. I'd like to just be recognized for my work without having to have that other qualifier be added to it.
I gotta agree with you on that one. Because the other title in tech, when you're a woman, she's so phenomenal, this woman in tech. How about this person in tech, right? How about not this Black woman is doing XYZ? How about this phenomenal DEI director or community engagement director is doing X? Because it dehumanizes you when you are referred to by the things, the qualities that are physical to you. You are a Black woman, a Black gay woman, a Black veteran who also is a woman. Do you know what I mean? It takes away from who you are as an individual, as a human, and it separates you, like it others you. And I think what I would like to see in the tech community is more action and less talking. More action and less talking. And I see that movement happening. It's not happening fast enough for me. But when George Floyd was murdered, Domo led the way to making this public statement that Black Lives Matter, right? And in 48 hours, we got something like 240 companies in the Valley to sign their name to this thing that we did. We put an ad in the newspaper, we ran, and then we put billboards up. 240 something companies is a lot. And I have not seen the fruit off the vine yet. So I would like for folks to do more doing and less talking, if that's fair.
Yeah, that's a powerful question. I think the leaders of organizations they're not of color. So I'd love to see for them to really embrace it, to make sure that we all feel valued and that we matter in that organization. And I don't know how they can without having the conversations and digging, but everybody's not interested in doing that. So we have to do what we can from where we are and speak when we can and again and have the conversations. And when the George Floyd situation happened, or murder, I ended up talking to a bunch of law firms. For whatever reason, they reached out, and the title was Let's Talk. We just have to learn to talk, to have a safe place for me to say the wrong thing, or for you to say the wrong thing, and for me to you're not my enemy because you said the wrong thing. You just have to learn. There's ignorance. I have ignorance. You have ignorance. Let's just talk about it and break down the barriers that have developed. We thought when, Barack Obama was president, it was like, well, it's solved. Race problem solved. America, we got a Black president. Well, here we are a few years later. It's not been solved. That didn't go the way that I think everybody had hoped on that day when the votes came in. So we have to continue to talk, and we have to continue to educate and make it safe for them to ask the question. And no question's a dumb question. If you don't know, you don't know. I've been here my whole life, and I've had lots of interesting questions. I'd go somewhere and I'd tell people, they'd be like, "Where are you from?" And I'd say Utah, and I'd see the face like, there's not any Black people there. And I'd say, there are, Carl Malone and our family. They're like, that's all? I'm like, no, there's a few more, but they would, But we just talk. I mean, we don't, I don't want to shame you. We just have to talk and continue to break down the barriers and make it safe. Make it safe for me to show up in the workplace or wherever I am with my natural hair, with braids. When I cut my hair, stopped relaxing my hair, I had an intentional conversation with myself of, this might screw up my career. I may not go any further because I can't do it anymore. I've had chemicals in my hair for 40 years. I'm tired of it. I hope I still have a job. And I walked into the job going, ooh, and it was fine. It was, but some people were probably, kind of like, what happened to your hair? Or, and then I got braids and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know your hair was so long. I'm like, it did not grow 2 feet overnight. These are extensions. Let's talk about it. But I was worried when I got it braided. I thought, now they're going to be like, she can't be a leader in this company to have braids. And when I cut it off, like, oh God, she's got an afro. She cannot be a leader in this company. That's what I worried about. And that's just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Shouldn't have to do that. So
I worry about the same things every single time I change my hair. I just had an afro last month. I've done braids. I've had a weave. I've had my natural hair. I've had straightened hair. Every single time, like,
What are people going to say?
what are they going to say?
Yeah.
we clearly need a big discussion about hair in the state of Utah. I don't know.
Well, that might be the next
I think so.
session. Yeah. Well, let's talk about your hair, Marlon.
Is it natural or?
This is it. I don't have a whole lot of problems with my hair, but I have daughters and mothers and cousins and nieces, and it's not just here in Utah. And you don't mess with a black woman's hair. I know that.
So if you get anything from tonight,
I'm
that's like
saying.
the one lesson.
Period.
But what would you like to see tech do?
I would love to see the diversity. Let me say this. I would love to see the development of a diverse culture as the responsibility of the leadership in tech. So I am thrilled that we're promoting black women to powerful positions of D&I. But I want that to be a direct link to our leadership, and in that the work is a partnership, that you're supported from the top as a cultural shift and not just a diversity program. I'm done with diversity program. I want to see leadership from the top embrace diversity as a strategic objective. There are dollar signs. Oh, by the way, let me tell you something. There are dollar signs attached to diversity, right? You can make a lot of money if you embrace a diverse culture in your organizations, right? I remember, I won't name the company, but my first company I worked with here in Utah, most of the folks didn't know that they existed, folks outside of Utah. And then when we got there, we started talking about diversity, and then we became more diverse. And the people that we served were also diverse, and so it was cool to have me represent, stand in front of those folks, and we were able to close some deals because I was there representing the company from Utah. So this is not charity we're talking about. Truly, if you're deliberate and intentional about creating a diverse culture, it will show up on your balance sheet. Just saying.
So do it for the dollars.
Look,
At least do it for the dollars.
If you can't do it from a place in your heart, do it for the greenback. Right? That works.
So we have. Oh, go ahead, Camille. Yeah.
I have homework for everyone. Please watch the documentary Good Hair by Chris Rock.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a good documentary. So we have a few minutes for questions. Don't be shy. But we'll bring the microphone over to you. Any questions here?
Yeah, I did. I just said I don't know if I need a mic. Thank you for your words today, and thank you for creating this panel. It's been really awesome to be here today. I have been shocked at the polarization in our country, and I think my Pollyanna attitude toward life has been shocked in the last year or two, that the rainbow has become so politicized that if you put a rainbow on something, all of a sudden it's really political. And me just wearing my Black Lives Matter t-shirt at the grocery store has gotten looks and and I'm like, matter has become a political word. And I had a black person say to me, "Hey, I don't want you to use that poster anymore because I don't agree with the Black Lives Matter movement." And I was so shocked because I'm like, "But you showed up to the photo shoot and you signed a waiver." But the political nature of it, I don't know what to do to heal that. And if you have any thoughts on that.
One conversation at a time, and not when somebody does or said something that's like, not to, but to help me understand where you're coming from. Because if we attack people, then they're not going to talk. And we got to talk to understand, or it will stay where we're at. So we have to create environments of safety to say, why is that bothering you? To understand, why does the Black Lives Matter movement bother you? And then listen without, being defensive. But I think we just don't talk anymore. It happens to all of us. We have our triggers, and that trigger, and then you're over it. But we've got to remember we're all humans having this experience. And if you break it down, I tell people at work all the time, I'm in HR, I say, nobody's born in an a-hole. Life makes them that way. So when there's a Stephen Covey thing on the paradigm shift, when you understand what people have been through and you think, how could you think that way? When you talk to them and kind of get to know them, you go, you've had some trauma in your life. I get it. How can I help? And I think if we can do more of that and less anger and let's fight, but how can I help? Because you clearly have some things going on. So that's just one perspective, I guess.
There's a question right over here.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said as far as like being tired, and where is like the line between being informative and like helping your peers understand your, insert here, and like being a advocate for yourself and educating and, they're so forth. And, yeah. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense? Like, where is that line? Where do we draw that line and like do some work for yourself and like educate yourself versus us having to do it?
I think the line is when you're tired. You're allowed to be tired, and racism is not a black person's problem, if we can just be clear. We are the target of that thing. It should not be our responsibility to dissolve that thing. And when people come to you and are asking you what can they do, I always ask, well, what have you done? Don't ask me what can you do. Tell me what you have done. Have you had a conversation with your neighbor? Have you read about the Black Lives Matter movement or whatever? Do you understand why people are feeling the way that they feel? Have you reached out to a black person other than me, because this is the 30th time in the month that you have asked me a black question? Are there other people that you can reach out to? You really have to guard your own energy in all spaces, but it's especially exhausting in this climate right now when people are looking for, it's very lazy to me. It feels very lazy to me a lot of times because no one has put even any thought into an answer. And, I would never ask my professor a question without having an opinion already formed. I would never ask my boss a question without having some semblance of an understanding of what is going to come back at me. People who are asking what can they do, the response really is, what have you done? And it's not rude and it's not angry. It is your responsibility to do the research, to understand the struggle, to understand the trauma, so that you can have a better conversation with someone once you understand where they have come from.
Marlon, did you have?
Yeah. So we're here. All right. Doesn't matter how we get here. We're here. We got here. We're here. And there's a shared responsibility. And yes, unfortunately, you do get tired, and you do get to opt out of some of it. Rest. You get to rest. But we do get to, just like we we advocate for ourselves in, you know, we came out of the womb advocating for ourselves. Wow, feed me, right? That won't stop. And so we are here in a black body or a female body or LGBTQ body, however, if you're unfamiliar with it, there's an element of fear. And there's a certain responsibility, a joint mutual responsibility to dispel the fear through dialogue, through conversations. And so we need courage on one side, and we need courage on both sides, actually, right? And sometimes when you don't feel like talking, you might have to talk. But most times you can stop talking. And I agree with you. Racism is not a black person's problem or any other minority group's problem. Discrimination is not our problem. Discrimination is not a problem, actually. Ooh.
We're waiting for the rest.
Right? Every day we get up and we discriminate. Do we go left? Do we go right? Right? Do I slow down? Am I going to make that light? Discernment is required. Condemnation is not. Right? So we must discriminate. We don't have to condemn. And I think it's the condemnation that follows the discrimination based on your biases that we're trying to eliminate. I want you to see me as a black man, and I don't want you to see me as a black man, right? But I don't want you to judge me either positively or negatively. Because if I take your positive judgment because I'm a black man, I'm going to have to take your negative judgment. I just want you to see me as a black man, child of God, who are walking this earth just like you are. So you can get tired, but I think there's a mutual responsibility, like we do with everything else, to engage in that dialogue. And sometimes we do get tired. Sometimes we have to talk through it. But you get to say, no, not today. I honestly, my daughter called me up and she said during the protest for George Floyd, and she said, Dad, why aren't you angry? I was like, yo, I'm angry. My way is different. I'm not your age. I want you to march. I want you to do all those things. But me, I'm doing systemic change. So you get to act, you get to react, you get to do it your way. So my way is to shift the system by which we educate our young people, so that they can show up in an ed tech space or in a tech space and just be one and again. Just be a techie, right? Not a black woman in tech or an Asian woman in tech. That's a techie. And underneath that is like, they're nerdy, right? We kind of like that.
One more question right here.
Thanks for an awesome panel. You guys are amazing. I feel like I want to be a good ally, and I feel like I fall into this trap of like white savior, right? And like, you know, running towards black people, saying, let me help organize a BRG or whatever. And so any advice about like, again, I want to be a good ally, but I also don't want to, like, I've got a lot of white male privilege that I recognize, you know, and so like, how can I balance that so it's not about me, you know, and that I can just, again, like be a good ally and help organize, but not make it about me. So.
I love that you said the white savior complex, because that's a thing. That's a real thing. That's, for you all who don't know, that's when white people go to Africa and then they take pictures with little black children who have flies around them and like just no shoes. And they're like, look at what I did today. It's the white savior complex that forces them to do that. It is not about anything else oftentimes. What makes a really good ally in a white man is when he allows for the other people who he is being an ally to have their voices heard. It is not, being an ally is not your space to make it about you. It is totally about the underserved group or the underrepresented population. And it is for you to use your power to give them a platform on which to be heard. And that is how you become a great ally. You do that by saying names of people in spaces that they would never have the opportunity to be in. Bringing up, you know, sponsoring people, mentoring people who don't look like you, giving people the opportunities that they wouldn't have that you have. That's really important, especially in business, especially in tech, and making sure that you're not centering yourself. Make sure that the people who you are working to help are being the center. If that's helpful, I hope.
Yeah, thank you for that question, and we appreciate everyone coming out today. Wasn't this an amazing panel? I love hanging out with these guys. So in true fashion, we're just gonna have appetizers and food, and I wanna highlight Rita. Rita, could you stand up? Rita is the most amazing baklava baker in the state. All over the nation. It is truly to die for. I'm so grateful that she came here and she brought her baklava to try. So please try it. And we love seeing successful Black-owned businesses in Utah. It does exist. It does exist. So please stay, enjoy, and thank you for coming to this panel. Thanks, everyone.